Today's learning target is I can write rational numbers as fractions and classify numbers. Today we're going to talk about rational numbers. Rational numbers are any numbers that can be written as a fraction. Okay, so these four are rational numbers. Now the first three that we look at, those are probably you're familiar with. We can write those as fractions. Today we're also going to look at how do we write a repeating number as a fraction. If we need to write a rational number as a fraction, there's two examples here. Let's take a look at B here. So if we needed to write negative 23 as a fraction, you can see here they've done that, and that's fairly simple. All you have to do is put over 1. So negative 23 over 1 would be the same as negative 23, because really what this is saying is negative 23 wholes. Okay, because this would mean it's wholes. Or you could write the negative sign here too. If we have a mixed number like letter A here, 6 and 1/6, okay, you can see they've given us the answer, and the answer here as a fraction is 37/6. Now, to get that, remember the way to do that is you do this. You take your denominator and you times it by the whole number. Okay, so in this case, it's 6 times 6 is 36, and then you add the numerator, plus one more would be 37/6. If we're asked to write a decimal as a fraction in simplest form, okay, so in this case 64 hundredths, and we want to write that in a fraction as in simplest form, first thing we need to do is we need to write that 64 hundredths as a decimal into a fraction. Now we want to simplify or reduce this fraction, and we do that by finding a number that I can divide into both the numerator, the top number, and the denominator, the bottom number. Now when I look at this, right off the bat it jumps off to me they're even, so I know that 2 will go into both of those. And when I do that, then I'm left with 32/50ths. And I see that those are both even, and I know anytime I have a number that's even, I can divide by 2, and that leaves me with 16/25ths. Now, there's no more numbers that'll go into the numerator, the top number here, or the denominator, the bottom number here. Okay, the only numbers that would go into 16 are 1, 2, 4, 8, and 16. And the only number of these that'll go into this is 1, so it's in simplest form. So 16/25ths. Now you can see that up here they divided each by 4 right here, and if you found that the bigger the number you find, the fewer steps. I just took the evens or divided by 2 because I saw they were both evens, and that was quicker for me. In this problem it says a handheld video game system weighs 9 and 675 thousandths ounces. Write this decimal as a mixed number in simplest form. So again, the first thing I want to do is write the decimal number as a fraction. So I have 9, and then there's a decimal right after the 9 there. Okay, and that's the part where my fraction is going to begin. So then I'm left with 675, and you can use this chart here, and you can see how they got to thousandths, and they know that that one was, when it's three places to the right of the decimal, it's thousandths. So 675, and because I say it thousandths, that would be what my denominator is. Okay, if it was just one decimal over, it would be 6/10. I'd write it like this. If it was 2 decimal places over, it would be 600ths. I'd write it like this. Okay. When I look at these two numbers, the numerator and denominator, I see that the numerator ends in 5 and this ends in 0. So I could divide each of these by 5. But remember, the larger the number I divide by, the fewer times I have to divide. So I also see that 25 would go into each of these. So if I do some mental math, I know 25 goes into 100 4 times, so it would go into 1,040 times. Now to do 675 divided by 25, maybe you do that in your head. Maybe you say, well, I know 25 goes into 100 4 times, so it would go into 624 times. and then there'd be 75 left over. That'd be 3 more, so that'd be 27 times, oops, sorry for the color change there. Or you could just do this and divide it out and figure that out. So now I have my simplest form of that. So I have 9 and 27 40ths would be that decimal number in simplest form. Today you'll be asked to identify all sets to which each number belongs. Now, when we do that, the first thing we're going to take a look at is if the number is what we call an irrational number or a rational number. Rational numbers are any numbers that can be written as a fraction. Irrational numbers are numbers that never repeat and never end. So let's take a look at a few of these numbers and see if they're rational or irrational. So -3, we can write -3 as a fraction. It would be -3 over 1. So that's a rational number. The decimal 48/100ths can be written as a fraction, so that's a rational number. And 2/5, that is a fraction. That can be written as it is a fraction, so it's a rational number. Now, here we have the number, this number which represents pi. And we know that pi never ends. 3.1415, and it goes on and on and on. So that is one that doesn't repeat and it never ends. That's considered an irrational number. Here's another example of an irrational number. You can see here that we've got a pattern that's continuing in this number. So 2.1211211112, and those dots mean that it continues and it doesn't end. So this number would be considered irrational. Some rational numbers fall into other sets of numbers as well. So another set of numbers is whole numbers. So whole numbers are rational numbers, but they're numbers that start at 0 and they're wholes, they're not decimals. So 0, 1, 2, 3, numbers like that. So we can move 45, that would be a whole number, and so would 0. So 0 is a rational number, and it's also a whole number. So the last set of numbers we're going to talk about are integers. And integers they include all the whole numbers and their opposites. So we would have not only a number like 45, but -45 would be an integer. So -23, that's an integer. Okay, -3 would be an integer. So we can see a whole number like 45, a number like 45 is a whole number. It's also an integer. It's also a rational number. Okay, it falls within all three of those categories. A number like -23 would be an integer and a rational number, but it's not a whole number. A number like 48/100ths isn't whole, it's not an integer, but it is a rational number.